This week's teardown happens to fall on Christmas Eve. And for the holidays, I wanted something that was special. Now, that doesn't mean the other teardowns I've done aren't special, but I wanted something just a step above. I put all this pressure on myself, and the stars aligned. Sometimes it just works out that way. And now I have another Dodge Viper engine. Now, first off, the last two 8.3-liter Dodge V10s I tore down were out of Ram SRT10 trucks. This one is actually out of a 2004 Dodge Viper. This is my first actual Viper engine. And there's a lot of people to thank for this engine being here on the stand to be torn down today. Number one, my friend Hugh for sending me the link on Facebook. Number two, to Kyle and Jason in Ellettsville, Indiana. I sent them a message and they held the engine, and then my parents went to go pick this up 3.5 hours away. I absolutely love my parents. They, even when they don't think that I need any help with anything, they still help. They're just amazing people, and I can't thank them enough. You guys should thank them too, because without them, this wouldn't be here. Dodge Viper engine. I'm stoked. The majority of engines that come in, I don't really get any details, no information. I don't know mileage, but this one's different because I bought it from the owner. I know this engine has 26,000 miles on it, which is barely anything by any relative standard. But to find low mileage Viper engines isn't that tough. Most people don't daily drive their Vipers. To find a blown up low mileage engine, that's a little trickier. The other thing I know is that this engine was replaced with a brand new one, and this sat in his garage for some time until he sold it to me. And apparently this is how the brand new one comes, with engine harness, a loaded intake manifold, exhaust manifolds, pretty well equipped. A lot of places when you buy an engine, it's just a bare long block. Well, you guys know the drill. The first thing we're going to do is pull the plug wires and the plugs and see if there's malice in the combustion palace. Oh, that was disconnected.
What the?
Well, these are champions, my friends, and I'm sure they kept sparking till the end, except for this one. Cylinder 3 appears to have some malice in the combustion palace. That one's pretty wrecked. The rest of these, some of them are fuel soaked, but not as bad as that. It's broke. Next, I'm going to start disconnecting all the electrical connectors so that we can prep the intake manifold for removal. Okay, I think everything on the intake is disconnected. I can see some of the bolts are out of the intake, so obviously it's been apart. Shouldn't be too bad to get apart then at that point. This pesky one here. Seems like most of these bolts are loose. I am going to save all the hardware from this. Nothing's getting scrapped from this engine. Okay, maybe they're not all loose. Oh, that one will have to come out later. I actually need to remove this aftermarket intake plenum cover as it blocks access to some of the bolts that hold the intake to the head. And that one fell too. All right, now all the bolts are out of this side, and I've dropped all my tools. Let's get to the other side. And that one fell. We'll just get them when we get the intake off. Okay, I think the intake's loose. Or not. Or not. Very much not. Did I miss one? No. Nope. I think it's just a job for blue. Just give it a little pry in action here. Yeah, it didn't take much. I think there's some hoses and things that I'll need to remove. Let's see, what have we got here? Oh, we have some harness things. I bet, oh, more connectors. Well, let's disconnect this sensor here. This is my least favorite type of connector on the planet. You know, the ones with the red locking tabs. I think there's a lot of those connectors on Teslas and some trucks, and more of them. And these are pretty decent to come apart because it's a low mileage engine, but when these are cooked a lot, lots of heat cycles, they are not fun. Inevitably, there'll be more connectors underneath this intake, but we're just going to cross that path when we get there. Oh, there's a thing right here. Okay, let's see if we can get this off. Oh, I see what's happening. There you go. Now what? Oh, there's a coil in there with one of those locking connectors. Yay! My favorite. I think we're good now. While I'm right here, I'm going to get the coils and the wires out of the way. It'll just be a lot easier. Now I can retrieve all the bolts that fell. Well, we're looking at the right cylinder head. Intake ports are really nice and clean. That port injection. Not seeing anything wrong on this side yet. And here is the left side. And I don't know if you can tell, but that looks really ugly in there. It doesn't look like the intake valve is bent, and the seat is still in place, but there's definitely something going on here. That's cylinder 3. That's the one that had the re-gapped spark plug. That's where the damage is going to be. The rest of these look really nice. Next, I'm going to remove the exhaust manifolds. Looking at the exhaust ports, this is the right side. A little wet, but not terrible. Also pretty good sized ports. Very short too. Now looking at the left side, and here's cylinder 3. As you can tell, that valve is bent. It's kind of jammed in there. The rest of these all look pretty good. Now let's peel the valve covers off. Hopefully these come off nice and easy. Nope, just a tap. Oh, it's beautiful in there. Everything looks really nice in this engine. Of course, 26,000 miles, and typically speaking, Nobody really neglects Vipers. Abuse is another discussion, but most of these cars get pretty well maintained. I don't really... There's nothing really notable. It's just a nice, clean, low-mile engine. Let's get to the other side. Really the same deal on this side. I mean, even the oil looks pretty good. I expected to find some damage to the valve train since we know we have a bent valve or a damaged valve. And it's this valve right here. But it looks okay. Yeah, it looks okay. We're just going to say okay. Now it's time to remove the rockers. Well, all the push rods look pretty good on this side. Before we get the big head bolts loose, we need to take the small ones out. Time for the big head bolts. This one's already loose. I'm not quite sure why, but we'll get the rest of these out. Sorry those were quiet, guys. Now, theoretically, this had to just lift right off. Oh, that is a heavy head gasket. Oh, no. Well. Oh, no. That's much worse than anticipated. Oh, man. Well, I don't know how fixable this is actually going to be. Oh, gosh. Upon first glance, this head doesn't look too bad, and this head might be okay. However, if you look a little harder at this combustion chamber, it's definitely chewed on some debris. There's some damage, some divots. But what's more alarming is this combustion chamber here. You can definitely tell that something hit this very hard, like extremely hard. The valves have some marks around the edge, and I'll show you why. Here's the rear cylinder. This is the one that ingested something, some debris from whatever happened. And then you have this piston, which is, it looks like it might be normal, but it is certainly not. Huge marks from the outline of the combustion chamber. This piston made contact with the cylinder head so hard that it actually cracked the piston. And then if you look really closely, there's a hole in the block right there. This one looks okay, but major damage in this one. Believe it or not, that was the good side. This is the bad side. Let's get these rockers and push rods out and tear this head off. Yeah, push rods all look good. Just like the other side, we'll get these upper perimeter bolts first. Time to crack these head bolts loose. Oh, these just are, they're quiet head bolts. Oh, that's not good. It's pretty obvious that, you know, this thing, it's bad. It's really bad, actually. It's much worse than I expected. So much worse than I expected. You can see signs of debris and metal in every single cylinder. Except this one, because it's just gone. Which got me thinking, of course there's more there, but this got me thinking, there's a hole in the block. I guess I just never saw that with the exhaust manifold when this thing was fully dressed. Now the good news here is that it's balanced because there's a hole on the other side in the exact same spot. And as you would expect, the cylinder head, well, it's got some battle wounds. This definitely was not an idle failure. You can see that valve is bent. That's the valve we saw. That valve, all of this is just annihilated. I think this could be fixed. I think these heads are worth the repair. It's just going to take someone a long time. It's not like you can just go down to your local salvage yard and pull yourself a set of Viper heads. It actually looks like a piece of ring is jammed into that head. I can't get it out. Let's try a little harder here. Nope. Oh, maybe? Yes. There, now it's fixed. The next thing I'd like to do is remove the front timing cover, but to pull that cover, we got to pull the oil pan. And to pull the oil pan, well, I have to remove my 2x4. And so now I think is a good time to talk about what I had to do to get this engine on the stand. The last two Viper V10s I've torn down, I tore down on crates. I didn't want to do that on this engine. So to get this on a stand, it turns out the bell housing is wider than my engine stand allows, so I had to find an extra engine stand leg and bolt it to one of the... I'm not proud of this. This is kind of one of those ill thought out, hey, this might work. But I added a structural 2x4. Might have come from a pallet. Not sure. It did the job, but now that the engine's a much lighter short block, I think I can remove the 2x4 and everything will be fine. Don't try this at home. See, it's fine. Now I have learned from teardowns past where engines have grenaded that it's much easier to pull the pan when the engine is right side up. Otherwise, I'm fishing broken parts of engine out of areas that they would not normally be, which makes my job a lot harder. So we're going to drop the pan just as it sits. Hopefully I can find all the bolts. Hopefully I can find the right size socket. Is that not the right size? Nope. What about this one? Also nope. That was smooth.
Super smooth.
Oh man. Good news is I don't think the pan broke. Well, this is the most impressive thing I think I've ever seen. This baffle, obviously slightly rearranged by what happened to this engine, but the amount of engine material, I don't know what else to call it, inside of this is just, it's amazing. Of course, we've got a wrist pin. Oh my god. It broke a wrist pin. Oh my god. It's possible, guys. I had no idea. That is a first. My brain doesn't even know how to comprehend this. A broken wrist pin. If a wrist pin breaks, then it's actually blown up. Bad enough to... My god. What else are we going to find in here? Well, there's a small end of a rod. Now that wrist pin, ready to reinstall. I can't get over it. A broken wrist pin. I didn't think that was possible. Oh, there's a big end of a rod. And that's amazing. Ah, there's one ring. Oh, I just flung that other compression ring in outer space. And there's just so much in here. We're going to have to get this baffle out of here because it's hiding some things. So one thing I did notice is these bolts are loose. Maybe not all of them. Maybe just some of them. Okay. What's behind this? Well, There's an end of a rod. Another one. Oh, wow. The oil is like a paste. There's some bigger pieces over here. I don't even know if I can get these out. Yeah. What is this? Come on. A broken rod cap bolt. Oh, of course. No engine is complete without piston nuggets. Lots of dipping sauce. I find that the sauce to nugget ratio in this engine is not really appropriate. There is a thing as too much sauce, and that's what we have here. Oh man, there's just so much. I can't believe how broken this engine was. Part of a rod. Man, I don't really want to pour this out. There's so much paste that I'll never get cleaned up. Oh, let's see if the paste is actually, what kind of viscosity this paste has. Well, oh, there's some coolant in there. It's like a work of art. Ah, that's a much bigger piece than anticipated. There's just so much engine gravel, piston gravel, so much of that just in this side of the pan, and I'm not really quite sure how to get all this out. Rings, ring lands, everything you need to build an engine. Some assembly required. How am I going to get all that out? Oh, that there is very telling. That was a bearing, and now it's Reynolds bearing foil. It's not supposed to look like that. I could keep digging at this forever. Oh man, this paste is something else. Trying to get as much of this stuff out so we can have a look. Take a peek. Save a gander. There's so many pieces over here, it's insane. All these little baffles are making this much more difficult. Okay, I'm just going to spend a few minutes and fish all this stuff out, and then we'll turn the camera back on. I want to show you guys the consistency of what's in the pan. I mean, there's more chunks in here I didn't even know. This is, I don't know that we've seen it this bad. I don't think we have seen it this bad. Oh, hey, look. I might need that later. I've done my best to kind of reassemble this. I'm so impressed with how this is broken. I mean, look what it did to that rod. And then look at, I don't even know where the other piece of wrist pin is. I haven't found that yet. I'm sure it exists somewhere, or it exited. I don't really know yet. But look at the color on the top of that rod. Little bit of heat there, huh? Of course, that's piston / block. There's some piston nuggets, some larger ones. Of course, you got your smaller ones. And like I said, way too much sauce. That was a rod bearing. Some rings. And then more rod chunks. It's just amazing. And this baffle is, I suppose you could pound that flat, but why? It's obvious it has multiple impact marks. In fact, it looks like one of those impacts actually damaged the pan a little bit. I don't think that would cause any major damage, but definitely left its mark. Now we can turn this thing upside down. That pan, probably not enough.
Maybe.
Well, it's raining engine parts. There's some... That actually looks like parts of a bore. Oh, it is. Yep. Oh my God. It's pretty apparent where the damage is. This is what they call one of those floating rods. Sometimes it needs to be in this cylinder. Sometimes it needs to be in this cylinder. It's going to be in no cylinders. That's kind of cool. The rest of this engine looks beautiful. It's just a little, just there. It's a beautiful Viper engine. The pickup definitely has some things in there, but it's not clogged completely. We'll try to fish that stuff out. What have we here? That is a piece of rod bearing. You know what? We're just going to get this off and we'll blow it out into a towel. Oh yeah, that's going to be bad. The pickup tube has several impact marks on it, and it's littered with some metal shrapnel, but we're going to take an air nozzle and blow through it and see what comes out. Not too much stuff. Did I just not get a lot of it? Oh, there we go. I think that's not all of it. That is definitely not all of it. There's so much, I don't even know what to call it. Slop? I mean, look at that. That would certainly clog it up, but I still think this was an after event. This is from it running. He did say that this engine was still running. I don't know how. Oh, there's definitely a piece of rod bearing in there. Let's see if we can use the wrong tool to get this out. Wait, what is this? Is that rod bearing? What is that? Oh, no. That doesn't look like metal at all. I'm going to have to spray that off. That looks like electrical tape. What? I could be totally off base there. Or maybe it's a leaf. That could be a leaf. How would a leaf get inside of this? I guess that's a really big question. I really want to get the rest of this out. Oh, no. All right, now let's clean this off. That is a leaf. Absolutely. I know a good leaf when I see one. So this had lots and lots of...
There's more stuff in there still. Get out of there.
So this is everything that was in that pickup, which is quite a lot, actually. It's quite spacious in there. Lots of metal. I believe most of this was post-destruction, but this leaf was in the pickup. Now, I don't know how a leaf could get into this engine after it was sitting and then up into the pickup. That doesn't make any sense to me. But if this engine was apart at some point in time and a leaf got in there and then it was circulating oil, I could see how a leaf could end up in the pickup. The question is, can that leaf block the pickup enough to cause this kind of damage? That is pretty, well, That's a hard one to say. I flipped the engine back around because I don't really like working upside down. Let's start working on this timing cover. Okay, now I have access to all the bolts. A little rusty there, but looks pretty good. I would definitely reuse this. Wait a minute. This is a Viper part. Now we can work on this harmonic balancer. Alright, to get the crank pulley off, I need to use my puller here. And I don't know that I have any bolts that'll fit this, but I'm pretty sure I can use 3 timing cover bolts. So we're going to zip 3 of these out so I have something to thread into that pulley. Perfect. All right, let's see if this works here. Could have caught that, but you know. Okay, now let's get the rest of these bolts out. Well, I watched the other 2 teardowns I've done on Viper engines, and it seems that this is just really sealed very well. That feels dangerous. No, that's how I break the sending unit. I remember that from last time. It seems to be in this arena. You know what? Let's just get something just a little bit bigger. Come on now. It's definitely moving more. It's just not moving enough. This side doesn't really have anything to pry on. Maybe it does. Oh, I heard some sealant pop. We're making progress. If this thing just didn't have wheels, that'd be great. Except for when I need to move it. All right. I think I can handle the rest with blue. Oh, here we go. It's literally, it was the gasket the whole time. It was the gasket. Now we can start on some lifters. Still good. Now we can remove the cam gear. Next, the cam plate. Now it's time to pull the cam. All of the lifters look really nice. I don't see any damage to them whatsoever. And what I was really concerned about is impact marks on the cam from flying rods and pistons. And I don't really see any. There's a little bit of wear on this cam. The journals aren't 100% perfect. But I think we're okay as far as a usable cam. Now, I don't know who buys a used Viper cam. I really don't. I don't know what the market is because the last 2 of these engines I tore down had wiped out cams. One thing I did want to show, there's more chunks of pistons, maybe block, right in the vicinity of where the cam was, which is impressive that the cam doesn't show any damage. I'm pretty impressed. I could have also fallen in there when I flipped this engine over. Time to roll this engine back over so we can finish pulling it apart. Yeah, there's some parts. What do we got here? Oh, that's part of a piston. That's all? Just one? The next thing I'm going to remove is this plate, which has major damage. Oh, okay. So what happened is, because of this, kind of pulled these two sides together. So now I need to pry it off. That is pretty thick metal, lots of damage, missing material. It's amazing. Now I'm going to try to turn the crank over. I tried turning it by the bolt. That doesn't really do much. So we're going to try to maybe... Oh man, this thing is locked up solid. What can I pry on? There really isn't much. I can make it go the wrong way, I think. Let's see. Nope. Wow. Oh, it does move. It just takes a lot of force. I don't think this thing ran. Nope. This did not run. I mean, it did, and then it blew up. So fun times are going to be had. That doesn't fit. So I can get the first one out. The fifth. Eighth. Ooh, this is going to be great. Well, let's start getting some rods and pistons out. I can skip this. Well, you know what? We can get this apart. Yeah. That, oh my God, the bearings. I didn't need that anyway.
Wowie zowie.
We're going to skip around a little bit because I don't have access to all of them. So let's get this one out. Now I need to figure out how to rotate this engine over. I think we can probably get it to move a little bit and get a couple more of these out. Shouldn't have said anything. Perfect. Now we just have part of a piston to get out. Let's see how easy this. Oh, we're gonna have to get the screw it. We use a steel punch. Who cares? It's broken already. Nope. Let's give it a little more oomph, shall we? I think. Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. I mean, it's broken, but it's perfect. The bearings in this engine, well, none of them are perfect. Especially that one and those. But the rest of these all show signs of oil starvation, dirty oil, something running through the oil system. I'm leaning more towards the starvation side of things. The rods and pistons, they have some pretty decent skirt wear. And of course the top of them, some of them, well, the top of that one is gone. There's the one that is broken, cracked straight through. That's pretty awesome. It's a nice conversation piece. I've tried to reassemble these rods the best I can. And then, of course, this engine ingested itself. Neighboring cylinders got some debris, but none of these pistons are perfect. Is that another, what I think it is? What is that? It looks like part of the head gasket. I don't think that's probably from pulling this engine apart. Yeah, you can see what the debris does to these things. And the wrist pins feel terrible. They're all crunchy. Crunchy tacos are good. Crunchy wrist pins are bad. That one is that one's pretty good too. I don't understand really. I did not expect to see this when I flipped this piston over, but that is bad. And this feels terrible. It's all notchy. It's amazing. Now we need to get this crank out. So let's get this cover off. In order to get to all the main cap bolts, I need to remove the motor mount brackets. Okay. You know what? We're just going to crack these loose by hand. Man, this one's really stiff. Nope, that's not what she said. And it doesn't want to come out. I have to pry the crank out of this. Not quite sure how I'm going to do that, but like this. All right, now I think I can get this out. I hope. Ha ha! Well, the main bearings are all pretty torn up. It's definitely why it was hard to get this crank out. The crank is sadly really hurt. All of the journals are damaged. Not even, I mean, this one is obviously the worst. Look at that dent. This thing blew up and just tried to power itself through whatever was happening until it wouldn't run. I mean, it's just, it's so bad. And even these journals, there's metal. It's just, it's a real shame. It's a pretty expensive crank. And then we have the block. I mean, there's whole sections of block missing, whole sections of bore missing. I mean, unless you guys know something I don't, this is, for the most part, not worth fixing. Maybe someone with enough ramen noodles could fix this. But as far as I'm concerned, this is a decorative piece now. It's a vent. It's hurt everywhere. And I mean, that bore is hurt bad. That's pretty sad. You guys didn't think I was going to forget this, did you? Now, I do have to be careful with this, because if this isn't damaged from whatever happened to this part is worth quite a bit of money. Come out of there. Yeah. It's not as bad as I've seen, but it is certainly not perfect. Let's give this a little bath. I certainly don't think that this was the cause, but there is certainly some damage to the housing. I've seen worse, and I bet this would still make oil pressure. It's just nothing I can advertise as perfect. And I don't know too many people with Vipers that would take this. It's not a Honda Civic. I actually don't know too many people with Civics that would take this either. Before I get into what happened, I just want to put something out there. I have never been mad or had ill feelings towards anyone that has sold me an engine on this channel. Just because it's worse than I was told doesn't mean that they knew how bad it was. Anytime you have an engine that's blown up, you never really know until the entire engine is in pieces. And I don't like buying engines in pieces. That doesn't make good content. So, of course, it was a risk to buy this engine. However, when I saw pictures of it on Facebook Marketplace, I saw it had an intake manifold, it had valve covers, exhaust manifolds, it even had a wire harness. I looked up the value of all those parts, and I knew for what I paid for this engine that I would still make money on selling the parts. So it didn't really matter how bad the inside of that engine was, and it was bad. So please, do not shame the people that sold me this engine. I'm the one that pulled the trigger knowing how bad it could possibly be. Now, what happened to it? Well, I don't personally think that leaf was big enough to block enough surface area of the pickup, but maybe it was the perfect storm. That leaf was in the pickup, and it was a little low on oil, and someone was driving it spiritedly. Vipers are not meant to put around town. They're not commuter cars. If you do commute in your Viper, props to you. I don't think I could do that. But if I had a Dodge Viper, every single time I drove it, my right foot would be through the firewall, because that's what those cars are designed for. So obviously someone was having fun in this car, and then it was followed by probably a lot of tears and cursing, and then a hefty bill. It's really, really a shame when this kind of thing happens. There's still parts to sell out of it, the parts I mentioned earlier. Plus, if anyone wants rods or pistons for their desk, or maybe you want a block to build into a coffee table, my countertop is just trash. There's so many broken engine parts on my counter, you can hardly write a check on it. Should probably address that at some point. So if you want to buy parts off of that engine, or you know what, before I get into that, a few weeks ago I made a post on the community tab about flood cars. I've been buying some flood cars out of Florida to part out, and this is a car I bought. It's a 2010 135 convertible. This car has 36,000 miles on it, and it holds a Florida certificate of destruction. It has no water damage, zero. Water was never inside of this car. I've looked through it completely. I could put my D-tag on it and drive it to California without a worry in the world. It's a real shame I have to take the whole car apart. I think what happened is because of the volume of insurance claims down there, there's probably not enough adjusters to lay eyes on every single car. So if an owner makes a phone call, hey, it might have been in the flood, they may just write it off. I'm just guessing here, but it's still a shame. I have to part this car out. So if you'd like to buy parts off of this car or off of this Viper engine or anything else I've torn down, you can go to importapart.com. If you don't see what you're looking for, you can fill out our part request form, which sends us an email of exactly what it is you're looking for. You can also email us at importapartsales@gmail.com. I really hope I delivered on this Christmas Eve or whenever you watch this. I had a lot of fun with this teardown. It was, it's always a treat to work on something that's not so common. I guess, as always, I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one. Oh, and I really hope you enjoy the holidays. Why didn't I say that sooner?